loving America was cool. And like, it was just natural. All my friends loved America. And recently I had a friend who was like, oh, I went on vacation and I put up an American flag outside my door. And I was like, I guarantee that's going to get ripped down. He was like, oh yeah, it's already been ripped down. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, we live in LA. Like, this is a major American city. And for that to be considered offensive. So anyway, I think about these kids. So I don't know how much you know about my obsession and why I work as much as I do. I worked in the inner cities. I worked with these kids that you were talking about, like up close. You get to know them. You love them. You want them to succeed. You want them to do well. So you start asking a basic question. They're really smart. Not universally, it's normal distribution, but you've got some really smart people in the inner cities just being destroyed by their zip code. So I'm like, okay, wait, how did we end up here? Like, what would they have to do, know, whatever? And for me, I came down to a lot of this is mindset. Like, they've been told the world doesn't want you to succeed, so they don't even try, which if you believe that the world is just stacked against you and that it's impossible, then of course, why would you try? So I was like, okay, we've got to get the right ideas in their heads so that they will take the right actions to learn and get educated. Now, I didn't get deep enough to, learn about how many people don't have computers and connectivity and all that. That's distressing. But when I think about why, because you said in a society like ours, something is wrong if you're allowing that to happen. And my answer to that is, you've got the civility quotient of, in some cases, I just don't want to see the other side have their way. So if the right answer comes from the wrong side, then I'm going to fight against it if I'm the other side. Then you've got, we can agree that the country is worth loving. So even just saying like, hey, we've got to put aside our differences because we're all Americans. And let's make sure that we are elevating all Americans. It's like, nope, like I can't rally behind the flag. I can't get behind this idea. And so now all these people are stuck in this purgatory of nobody's looking at metrics to say, hey, we're trying things. Is it actually working? And if the metrics aren't improving, then we have to change the policy. But that's not happening because of all the fighting. But I do think that it's partly because you have that, we can't even agree to rally around the country. Does that strike you as without patriotism? I don't know. Is patriotism a force for good, evil? How do you see that?
I think good produces a good type of patriotism. So I went through the same cycle, and I'll talk about metrics too. The reason I put metrics in there is, and I'm every 6 months or 12 months, I'm going to update the metrics so that everybody could look at those objective numbers and see, are we improving or are we deteriorating? And I think if the politicians, the people in government, were held accountable for those numbers so that you can objectively see, is education, is the wealth gap rising, is there greater productivity? These are measurable things. You can then see there, and they're not just measurable about outcomes, they're measurable about health. If you have a better healthy income statement and balance sheet, you are healthier and financially and so on. So those metrics we'll put out. But I saw the cycle. United States world order began in 1945. I was born in 1949. And I benefited from it. And it was not just an American perspective, that American dream. It was a world dream. It was the only country in the world where there was really a sense of equal opportunity. I was very lucky. I had two parents who cared for me. They loved me, gave me good guidance. I went to all public schools, and I came out to a world of equal opportunity. That's all I needed, okay? That's all almost everybody should get. Why shouldn't everybody get that? And it was a place where anybody from all over the world could come. And you were not, you could be a citizen. And it was the only place in the world where you could really be part of that and not considered an outsider. So all that immigration brought the best talent. And we operated in a place where there was rule of law and everybody respected the law. There were property protections, and you could make a life that was the type of life that you've had, the type of life that I've had, where we're free to speak, free to do those things, to have opportunity and so on, free to invent, free to do what you're doing and I'm doing. And that is the American dream. And that was a beacon for people all around the world. That was what the United States was, and so on. And that is good. That is good. Okay. Now we have something different. And we have a dynamic which is going on because we all abused that, because we had to spend so much money, because we became decadent in terms of overspending on some things and undertaking care of other things and so on. And now there's a fight, and that becomes that dynamic. So yes, if we could recreate the realization of what that was, is the American dream, what is fair, how does that work, and rekindle that, then that has a tremendous power in being able to bring that back. But the dynamic of history shows that it's more likely that it goes the other way. But yes, if we rekindle that, the idea of heroes, we don't have any heroes. Why don't we have any heroes? Because we're tearing people down. Heroes are role models, people who we admire. There are many people I admire, and I've seen in my lifetime. We should see more of those role models as examples of how to be. But we're missing that. We've become largely a decadent society that's at each other's throats, and we're in trouble.
Yeah, we're in trouble. Innovation. Speaking of, there's like almost a distrust now of people that strive for success. There's a distrust of science to some extent. There's I feel like, and maybe I'm crazy because the stats will bear this out, but it feels like we used to be the place everybody would want to come. If you had that entrepreneurial dream and you wanted to build something and you wanted to generate wealth and innovate something, this is where you would come. And then I look at somebody like Elon Musk, who honestly, man, just seems like an alien. I don't know how he's pulled off everything that he's pulled off. It's absolutely bananas. And yet, there are people who just can't have it. They can't have the level of success that he's had and aren't necessarily even looking at it from the lens of the innovations that he's created. Do you think that that's a predictable change in attitude that people have and they lose the desire for innovation? Is it just being decadent, or is there a rebellion against education? I don't know. I was so shocked to hear that there are people that aren't inspired by what he's doing, but instead are like just opposed.
I think everybody's got these opinions and they're so critical, and not, if everybody could just take care of themselves, it's like, start with oneself. The aspiration, and I think the reality should be to be self-sufficient plus. Okay, here's my view. Success doesn't have to be making the most money or the most contribution. Success for a successful life is that you have the type of life that you want for you, but you earn more than you spend so that you're self-sufficient. And if every individual could do that, you would have self-accountability and a successful society. And so it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing when people produce things that others want. And they end up making, in many cases, billions of dollars. It doesn't have to be the billions of dollars to be successful, but let's not resent that. Like, I think when we think about the prejudice of either against the billionaire or against the poor person, that prejudice, I think, supposing we eliminated the billionaires. Most of the billionaires, one thing is inheriting the billions, another thing is creating the billions. Most of that comes from coming up with something that people wanted, and then they and people spent a lot of money on that thing. And I think if you were to take those items that they created and you say the society is not going to have those items, would you have rather not had them? I think it's all a matter of stop the fighting, be productive, have the life that you want. Not all this fighting and criticism that is going to tear down each other.
If you like that clip, check out another powerful clip right here, and I'll see you there.